honor to be here. I love the idea of it's a film festival that's supporting filmmakers. The program is called Journey to the Oscars. So I thought we could just start off with how the journey began.
Started filmmaking after a long career in journalism, longer than yours, Liz. I had over 3 decades in print before I started filmmaking, and I only began in filmmaking because print hit a wall in 2008, 2009, and I found myself after a stint at Newsweek and the New York Times and New York Magazine, I found myself underutilized, and I thought I'd try to do something that I'd always wanted to do.
I really didn't come into directing in any kind of conventional way. It really was by necessity. I had a story that I felt I needed to tell that wasn't being told, at least where I was living. And the only way that I felt that I could articulate my points of view about the story was through the arts.
When I started my own career, I sort of just naturally went into producing because I knew I loved film and I knew I wanted to make films, but I never really thought I had stories that anyone would care to hear or to learn about. So I thought the best way that I could make films was to help, other filmmakers, other writers and directors get their films made. And I did that for a long time. I did that for, throughout my 20s. And then when I finished graduate school, I was finally ready, I finally felt like I had a story that I absolutely had to tell and was sort of pouring out of me. And that ended up being the documentary A Suitable Girl.
In this town I lived in Oregon, there was a very good architect who we knew, and I asked him, I said, if you wanted to become a set designer for the movies, what would you do? This was about the time I was ready to go to college. And he said, I would go to architecture school. So I said, okay. And so this was at Oregon, and I went to the University of Oregon School of Architecture, which had and still has a very, very good school of architecture. And I started out, following his advice. And, but then after a while, I decided that I then went on to the USC Film School, and it was there that I decided, well, I don't really want to be a set designer. I think I would like to make my own films of one kind or another. And so I began making documentary films while I was still at USC.
So would anybody like to talk about what it is that motivates them?
Well, I'm really inspired and motivated by my spiritual transformation and my need for a spiritual connection, not to be confused with a religious one, but rather a pursuit for whatever my purpose is, work that I'm engaged in right now, that I feel is connected to that source, and usually a liaison to that is music, and it's been music and meditation, and this has only come recently for me,
For me, it's very intuitive. It's just, I think there is a organizing principle to my work and the stories that I seek out, but it's really, it comes down to, not being able to sleep at night because I'm just thinking about a topic or a person or, something. Usually it's a person, honestly. And, just being completely obsessed, ignoring my children, my partner and, to pursue something.
Did you ever face any doubts when you were getting started? And more importantly, how did you overcome those doubts?
My doubt has always been like, how do you make a career out of documentary filmmaking? Big question, right? So, but that's not why I make films. I bring to my documentary filmmaking the same thing I've always brought to my print journalism, which was curiosity and wanting to find stories that enlighten and inspire and reveal.
I would not have been able to go on, I think, after a while, unless there had been some sort of successes. I think, I probably, my producer would have found another director, but we did somehow keep going. And, yes, if you have a success of some kind, I mean, critical success is a wonderful thing, but to have a box office success with a film that is also a critical success is an amazing piece of luck for a film.
Right before we locked picture on A Suitable Girl and we were getting ready to, premiere it, I was like, this is it. I'm never gonna have another good idea again. I'm never gonna feel disconnected to any other film or subject again, and I thought, okay, my path is I was like, it took me 7 years to make this film. If I make one documentary every 7 years, that's not a bad career, like that, I can live with that. But, after the release of A Suitable Girl, honestly, it was like some faucet like turned in my brain. Like it just, I felt like so amazingly like energized creatively, since then.
Is there any advice you would give to your younger self?
My stepfather is a blue collar worker, electrician, wires up houses and stuff like that. And he would bring me along with him to do stuff, manual labor. And my head was always in the clouds when I was with him. And I was always dreaming of things outside of that world. But now that, I make films and write, I realize that those are the experiences that I want to write about.
You have to believe in what you're doing. You absolutely be totally dedicated to what you're doing and believe in yourself and what you are making. And you can't ask 1,000 questions about it either. I think you just have to please yourself.
To stay on the learning curve, like don't get comfortable. Challenge yourself, throw yourself into challenges that are going to scare you in the car on the way to the set in the morning.
We did have some questions involving your experience on Indian matchmaking. Like it seems that is something that's really hit home for a lot of people.
It was an attractive idea to have a show that was going to be like a mainstream show about dating and relationships that was populated by people like me. It's a space that's been really dominated, by a particular demographic. And, I was just interested in the idea of making a dating show from a culturally specific point of view.
Thank you to the Greenpoint Film Festival for putting this together. And Roy, I hope that our attendees got a lot out of it. Like I said, I would have wanted to watch this panel if I wasn't moderating, and I love talking to all of you. Such great sentiments and stuff I will take with me as I go forward on my journey as well.